A very good morning to everyone. This is the first event of a series of events that are concentrating on a dialogue between Eranets, their interesting formats, and their experiences of the last 10 years, maybe, and national program owners and managers. It's an event that is dedicated to help preparing the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, one of the partnerships under preparation for the new Horizon Europe program, which is expected to start next year latest and to be prepared during this year. This is the first event of this series. Please be aware that this event is streamed on YouTube and will be recorded. So everyone that is interacting with us here in the chat or by talking, please be aware that this will be public and you will be public. My name is Michael Hübner. I work at the Austrian Ministry of Transport, no, of Climate Action, actually. And together with some colleagues that I will introduce in a minute, I'm moderating this series of events. And that brings me to a very brief introduction, and I will show you a couple of slides about the event series. This series of events called the Programmes-Dialogue, and the goal is that, as I said, Eranets and national programs share their experiences about successful formats and tools that they have been developing and using, good practices, successful activities. We want to have a mutual learning and capacity building action here in preparing the Clean Energy Transition Partnership in a hopefully very open and interactive atmosphere with a lot of interaction with between people and the audience, between the presenters. We have been starting with a stakeholder groups dialogue in spring, and over the summer we have been publishing our strategic research and innovation agenda in November 2021 in a side event with the CETP conference in Berlin. And now we are moving into these programs dialogue as a last preparatory step before we start designing the CETP. Already a number of presentations are scheduled, as you can see here, but there are also some free slots. So this is a call up to all the Eranets and the national program owners to take these slots and present yourself. We are very happy that a number of countries has joined this initiative of the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, and the number is still growing. We have a very good team of core team of persons from very many different organizations all across Europe that are behind developing this initiative. Over the time of this series, I think you will meet many of them, and that brings me to the point that I can start introducing our speakers of today. Today we are going to present, and I'm very happy that you are ready to take this first slot and to break the ice for the others and make the first step. That is the ACT Eranet, the Eranet Accelerating Carbon Capture and Sequestration, and the coordinator of this Eranet is Ragnhild Ronneberg from RCN, the Norwegian Research Council, and I welcome you very much, Ragnhild. So how long have you already been coordinating this Eranet Act, from the beginning on?
Yes, thank you so much, Michael. I've been coordinating ACT since we were kicked off in exactly 5 years back now. So we started in 2016, and before that, of course, we had the development and writing, the proposal to the Commission. So I've been
Great. So we will hear a lot from you and your experiences of the last years. That's really great. And just to introduce you a little bit more, you are working at the Research Council of Norway. What is your technical or educational background? So where are you based?
Yes, thank you. Actually, I have my PhD in biochemistry
Uh-huh.
from the University of Bergen, west coast of Norway. And I came involved with the CCS when I had a stay at the Spitsbergen at the university center there 10 years back. So that was
Okay. So
my
very interesting career.
story. Yeah.
Cool. So let me also introduce your co-presenters of today. That is first Gerdy Brembroek. Gerdy is working at the Netherlands Enterprise Agency and is working together with you, Ranghild, on this AirNet Act. But Gerdy, I think, I mean, we know each other now for some time in the preparation of this Clean Energy Transition Partnership. You're also involved in other AirNets. So can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yes. Indeed, I'm also I'm involved in the AeroNet Act, but also in geothermica, and this also reflects the subjects of my Netherlands Enterprise Agency, because I'm working on CCS and geothermal energy.
Cool, very interesting combination also. Both of you and also our third speaker are very engaged in the core team that is preparing the Clean Energy Transition Partnership. And so it's really a pleasure to call also up Gunter Siddiqui. Gunter is working at the Swiss Federal Office of Energy. Hello, Gunter. He's
Hi there, Michael.
done a lot of contributions also to the strategic research innovation agenda, and it was really very good experience working with you, Gunther, for this time. So very nice to have you also today. You're also engaged in a number of other international networks. I guess one that I know of is the International Energy Agency program of collaboration, collaboration programs. So are you a specialist on carbon capture and sequestration, or do you have a broader focus in your work?
Thanks, Michael, and hello, everybody. Yeah, indeed. For the Federal Office of Energy in Switzerland, I look after the research and innovation portfolio around CCU and CCS. But traditionally, I've been working in the oil and gas and geothermal industry as a production engineer. So my background really is anything to do with the subsurface, and CO2 storage obviously is quite close to my heart, and gas processing on surface. So very keen to be in that AeroNet and to share the experience that we've had, because it is really quite important, especially as we move towards climate neutrality in Europe. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Gunther. Yeah, very interesting, a broad spectrum of topics that you are working with. Finally, before we start, I want to very briefly introduce also our Regie team that is working a lot in the background. By the way, someone is typing very heavily. That's a little bit disturbing. Can you please mute yourself, whoever it is? To Christian, can you please bring up the Regie team, Nicolas Reschen? By the way, the ones of you that know Nicolas, he has been working for the Austrian Institute of Technology before, but now we are very happy that he has joined our team at the Austrian Ministry of Climate Action, working at the ministry from now on, preparing the Clean Energy Transition Partnership. And we have Christian from Net Producer, who is really doing a great work in bringing us into these new formats and new technical environment. Thank you, Christian, for your help. And I don't know if we have Arno still, because Arno has some connection problems, I think, and I'm not sure if we have him on the screen. I think not yet. So there is a great supporting team. Thank you very much. Nicolas will help us particularly with the questions that we will receive from the chat, and I hope that many people that are online will interfere via the chat on YouTube. You can ask questions, we will pick them up, we'll bring them into the session. So please feel free to raise anything that you're interested in, and we will try to pick it up. So that was it from my side. And now I hand over to our great team of presenters from ACT Aeronet, and we start with the first session. By the way, we are doing it a little bit blockwise. So we will start with a topic, we will present one topic, then you will be able to ask questions, we will have a little bit of discussion with you, and then we take the next topic to ensure as most as possible interaction between the speakers, but also with you as an audience. That was it from my side. Ragnhild, the floor is yours, and we are very interested to hear your presentation and see your presentation.
Thank you so much again, Michael, and thank you to your great team around you. Again, good morning, everyone. It's really a privilege, I would say, but it's also a bit scary to kick off this event and the first start of this series. But it provides a great opportunity to share some knowledge with you, and perhaps that can come into force also when we are framing the CETP and the challenges under that partnership. But Michael, you mentioned breaking the ice. I can inform you that we have like minus 12 or 13 degrees below zero today in Oslo. But the sun is shining, so we are all happy. But let's start with kicking off, and I'll bring you into the first part where we will just say, what's ACT? ACT in a nutshell. So ACT is currently connected with 16 countries or regions and provinces, funding organizations. It means either ministries or research funders. We collaborate on transnational calls and pay a lot of attention also to the knowledge sharing activities. And it's all dedicated to the CCUS area. And on the map, you will see that we span from countries, regions, and Canada, US, over to Asia and India, included in our group. And in the middle there, you see all the European partners, countries and regions in our group. So we have, as I said, we were kicked off exactly 5 years ago with a rather ambitious initiative. Very, very well organized, I would say, already from the start. Before we kicked off the official ACT program, we had a very good collaboration on the proposal to the Commission. And we have now established ourselves as a very powerful, I would say, a powerful scheme for research and innovation activities, transnational, multinational activities around the CCUS domain. And we have also established ourselves as a very fit for purpose and easy accessible and easy to join funding scheme for all who is interested in our activities. And mainly, of course, we have the ambition to make the CCUS community viable as a climate mitigation technology, which is important in the negative emission area. Already, we see that we have achieved great results, not only as a consortium, but from the projects we are funding, we have results being very relevant to the industry, different types of industry across Europe and beyond. But also, these results produce some important informations and feedbacks to policymakers, be it on national level or on the European level. So we already feel that we have a very good grip on that side also. Very briefly, we have currently executed 3 calls. The first in 2016, and the second one in 2018, and the third now only half a year ago. We started with a consortium, 10 partners from 9 countries, And at that call, we had the Commission co-funding also. And we were able to fund 8 high-quality projects, a budget around 36 million, including the amount from the Commission also. But in total, the budget of these projects were close to 50 million euros. So there was a significant amount of industry contribution and in-kind contribution also in these projects. All these 8 projects ended now last year and are in the final stage of wrapping them up with their final report to us. Our second call, we had extended our consortium, now 12 countries, and we funded 12 high-quality projects at the budget of more than 30.5 million euros. And again, additional contribution from industry and in-kind. These projects started in 2019 and will end next year. And to the final call, we again extended our consortium, including more countries and more regions. And the budget allocated from all these nations were around 36 million euros. By due date for submitting the pre-proposal, we received 91 pre-proposals, a massive interest around the world for this call. And we concluded just before Christmas to invite 38 of these pre-proposals to submit full proposal, which will be a deadline mid-March this year. And the request for funding from these, if all these should come through, will be 81 million euros, which is more than we have available. But already we can see that we have great outputs and outcomes from Act 1 projects, and also great results underway from the Act 2 projects. Let me only point at some general values or points that we have seen of significance for our operation. Of course, the objectives and goals of the consortium are very well aligned. We very easily, I would say, agree on challenges and how to operate internally in the group and outside the group. We have established knowledge sharing platforms for people in the group and also for the projects taking value from our support. And we collaborate also outside our own organization and try as best as possible to connect to other CCUS initiatives in Europe and beyond. And we have had these successful calls with the ambitious plans and greater outcomes, which has been very well received and acknowledged by the Commission. But perhaps mostly what is marked yellow here is a take-home message, which could be good to deal with later on also. The efficient model is extremely important, and it has also been attractive to other new partners, and we've been able to extend the consortium. And it's easy for newcomers to come in and be well connected to the rest. We operate with a very transparent process, be it to the Commission, the funding agencies among them, and also towards the applicants and other stakeholders. So that no hidden things or things kept secret. And also what is acknowledged is the safe and secure management of this program and all the activities around it, be it with the other ACT partners or with other partners outside the area. And that is, of course, important for the Research Council of Norway being the coordinator of this program, that this is being regarded as safe and secure. We have also gained positive feedback that we rely on sort of flexibility. It doesn't mean that you can do whatever you like, but a great deal of flexibility is important in order to keep the interest by the partners. and let them stick to their own national rules and regulations. Otherwise, they couldn't be operating under our scheme. And again, I would say this is perhaps a very personal message, but this collaboration is built very much on trust and fairness. And it also is an organization stepping up and helping each other. Various funding agencies helping each other to solve perhaps national problems or other problems that deals with the issues under ACT. We have achieved what was wanted by all partners, the EC, and we've connected with other multilateral initiatives like Mission Innovation and EAA, as already has been mentioned. We've delivered on promise, which is, of course, very important in order to be regarded as trusty. But there are some good learnings to take home on the way here. I'll just very briefly go through them and say the ACT brand is very strong, and we keep that for a good achievement. The coordination is very strong and reliable, very much regarded and place positive comments from other partners. We have a great dialogue between the partners, frequent meetings, so everybody can keep up and keep track on what is going. We've been able to grow from a smaller consortium to a larger one. And it seems to be that ACT is appealing to the international research and community, as it should be. Very good promoted, and what we also see from the increased number of submissions. The calls I've already mentioned, they are positive and very great results underway. We deliver on time according to what we agreed with the Commission, and the knowledge sharing workshops and so things we will come back to, which is also very important to keep all partners and project informed. There are some learnings to be improved that goes for the evaluation process mainly. We have some challenges with the consortium agreement when we include partners from outside Europe who is not used to the DESCA model. And we see some possibilities in the future also for a better share of the unit cost, or what it might be for coordination costs. We also have had some challenge with the reporting to the Commission, mainly the technical platform, not the other things being reported to them. But that could be improved. And there are some interesting aspects also that we are facing now with increasing number of projects that causes a lot of extra burden and work, of course, following up and monitoring all these projects. And the co-funding, of course, such as I mentioned, needs to be dealt with. So that was
very good, Ragnhild. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Was a very good first overview. Maybe to bring the audience in a little bit also, and but let me start as a moderator with maybe a first question. It was impressive the amounts of funding that was spent that you showed. Maybe a stupid question, and but I would also like Christian to bring in our two other co-presenters at that moment to get to talk a little bit. First stupid question: is CCS an expensive technology to develop, or what is the reason for the high numbers?
Yeah, yes, it's expensive, and we see that also there are very few projects below 1 or 2 million euros. So the technology is expensive, but that's how it is. This is not a desktop job, to put it that way. Yeah. It's really a newcomer, and that technology costs a lot. So. But you say it's impressive that the countries contribute without having access to money from the Commission. That is, it's really impressive. Really impressive.
I think, Michael, another point. Yeah, another point I
Go
think
on.
that is worth mentioning is there doesn't exist a market yet. So we don't have any market pull like we have in renewables, for example. So that's something I think that as the world progresses towards reaching climate goals, I think that market will develop and has to develop because we only have about 30 years left to really deploy CCS, CCU at a large scale. So that's going to happen. And I think we're well positioned for that growth, in particular with the CETP that runs out to probably 2030. So I think we are ready to go big.
Yes, that was my next question. I mean, before moving over to Geri, I think you also wanted to have a comment. One additional question to you, Gunther, as you're also engaged on the global level in the IEA initiative and so on. Is CCS becoming a more important for the next years? Because when we look on the involved countries, it's not small, but the limited number of countries that has engaged in this technology development right now. So is it for specialists? Is it for certain countries, or was it only a certain number of countries that were ahead of the others to be interested in the technology, and it will be now become more important in the future?
I would agree, Michael. I mean, it's going to be much more important in the future. And what you see here, the evolution from 9 to 12 to 16 countries, is really those countries that have already recognized the value of CCS, CCU in reaching climate goals. Some countries are extremely advanced. Just look at the big announcements that Norway has made just before Christmas, supporting the Longship project, which is a gigantic integrated infrastructure scheme for CCUS with to the tune of 2.5 billion euros, and similar trends happening in the Netherlands and in other countries. And the global reach, I think, is important. We've got the United States and we've got the province of Alberta and India here that all recognize the need for the deployment of that technology. So it's going to happen. And I think many countries around the table will submit their long-term climate strategies to the UNFCCC. And again, we see a big emergence of CCU, CCS in the implementation of those strategies. So I think well poised for growth. And we recognize this at the IEA as well, the International Energy Agency. I happen to be in a number of those committees and working parties. It's beginning to grow tremendously.
Very interesting perspective. Before we also bring in Geri, I would like to pick up a question or a remarks that came from the European Commission. Alessia was sending us this, and I asked Nicholas to bring that on the screen also. Alessia is asking, in your opinion, to what extent did the project finished in 2020 help the industry to progress on the CCS development and deployment? Do you have specific examples? And maybe we take also the second one immediately. She also asked, does the project plan to continue the work through other funding sources, as Innovation Fund or similar, the European Innovation Council, etc.?
Yeah. I think I'll try and answer the last question first. Yes, some of the Act 1 project, they already developed a new follow-up under Act 2 and 3. And actually, some of them, they have discussed among them whether or not to apply for Innovation Fund. I don't know the status of that, but they are very up and running for continuation. And also a large number, I would say, if not all of them, they are connected very well with needs specified by the industry. Some of them have a huge involvement and contribution also from industry partners. So the results are very quickly picked up by the industry.
Great. As we have used our time for this session, one last question. I think we have a little bit connection problems with Geri, so maybe we can bring in her later on. And maybe we move over to the next session for now, not to get late already in the first part of our event. There are two additional questions that I think you can easily take with you for the next sessions. I don't know where they fit, but one question was from Susanne Meyer about, you were talking about transparent processes and flexibility for partners. I think that will come later on also in your presentation. And Keith Quant from Aeronet Bioenergy is asking, are BECS, now I'm not knowing what this is, you will help us, are BECS included in acts? So maybe at a later point you can pick it up, but let's not answer that now. Let's jump into the second session. The floor is yours again.
And the second session will be undertaken by Günther.
That's right, Ragnhild.
I'll steer the presentation, Günther. You just let me know.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So good morning again to everybody. So I'll be talking about the part B of this scheme, about the joint calls, and give me about 10 minutes or so. One thing that is quite important to recognize is that the Aeronet Act jumped straight into being a co-fund. So we didn't have a 4-year preparatory period where we aligned ourselves and developed a common understanding of our research challenges and what needs to be done, but rather we jumped right into it. Now, what does that imply, or what did that imply back in 2015 to 2016 to how we set up our joint calls? Importantly, we recognize that we have to keep the challenges that are around the acceleration of CCUS technologies Act, accelerating CCUS technologies, fairly broad, because many countries see the value or see the role of CCUS rather differently. So the challenge was set out to be rather broad. Similarly, we said that the scope of the call again needs to be very, very broad. As I mentioned, we have a very disparate group of funding agencies that have national goals that are actually quite different. There are some countries that emphasized carbon capture and utilization. There are other countries that emphasized carbon capture and storage. There were countries that emphasized the application of CCS in the industry sectors, others in the power generation sector, others yet to look at to clean up basically the fossils. So that was quite an important one. And we found that having broad challenges, a broad scope, and also leaving room for the expected impact as defined in our call guideline was quite important to build trust and to establish this long-lasting collaboration and the shared commitment to act. So especially I think that's going to be important for the newly defined challenges in the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, is that we start from a broad base. Now, what we did though is that some countries of course have maybe some legal restrictions to be able to fund only certain things. We had importantly in our call guideline an extensive Annex 1 where we specified the national funding rules and where national funding agencies or regional funding agencies would go in and constrain maybe or sharpen the focus that would be eligible for funding in those countries. That served actually our purposes rather well, and also the consortia that were put together and to respond to calls were able to identify that. And really, this helped us also achieve this objective, this fundamental objective of trying to align national and regional funding agencies under one roof, so to say, in one house, because the funding agencies had huge variations in commitments. I mean, we show here 300,000 euros up to even 7 million euros per call, and this theme continues and will continue. So whatever we did, or anything that we did within the definition of the call guideline, was to ensure that countries were able to participate according to their needs. Now, on the next slide, you'll see something about the organization of the call management. So one of the partners, in this case, it was Germany, they led the drafting of the call text. So they were basically in charge and accountable for delivering a call text that would be approved by the Aeronet Act board, so the ultimate decision-making process. Now, Germany operated or collaborated very strongly with the ACT management team, basically doing the day-to-day operations of things, to arrive at a very sound text. So that was quite important. Also, we had multiple clearing procedures with all of the funding agencies involved to ensure that all of the national processes or regional processes would be fully aligned with, for example, the timing of the calls and the deadlines, and also in terms of the timing required to space out, for example, the evaluation procedures or the eligibility procedures, and later on the evaluation procedure. What was also extremely valuable was having the Research Council of Norway operating the call, which meant that setting up the electronic submission system and having the back office support, so to speak, at the Research Council, this worked actually extremely well and was highly efficient. And importantly, since you kind of learn a lot from the national system, we also learned that the Norwegian system is very transparent and reliable. Declarations of conflict of interest, ways to figure out whether or not there was going to be an issue around, say, experts were going to evaluate and being or not, rather, being part of the consortia. So at the end of the day, what we had were building on the processes of our Norwegian lead. They were actually very transparent, and we, at the end of the day, delivered a very sort of a very high trust type of environment where integrity and maintaining due process was actually very important. And what the management, the execution or the operation of the call at RCN also implied is that it was all coordinated support to the applications, because invariably you get quite a bit of Q&As. You need to have updates of the call for the applicants, and that was actually done through the Research Council of Norway, who ran a string or a series of webinars and other information events that we coordinated country to country throughout the entire ACT community. So what we did, and I'm kind of already alluding or led into this in terms of the support activities for the consortia that were being developed, were being built, we try to maximize any platform that we have to communicate how we do the calls, because it is a bit of an unusual animal, having many different countries involved, different procedures, different styles, and so on. So this issue around call setup, operation management was actually always part of the annual knowledge sharing events. The other thing that we've done is we proactively distributed information on ACT. We had pre-announcement of calls. We used our national networks to tie into raising the awareness, and I think the case in point is Ragnhild's increase in the increase in numbers of proposals per call. So the other thing that we've done is we had a well-aligned system where if Q&As came in from consortia or from countries or from potential consortia and members to consortia, we made sure that any of the Q&As were immediately put on the Eranet websites, the ACT website, so that people would know about that. The other thing that we've done, especially when it came to setting up the call and defining the call, is we really benefited a lot from the fact that many of the Eranet ACT management team from the countries are actually tightly integrated with the SETPlan CCUS implementation working group, because after all, the Eranet ACT is an important instrument to translate the actions that have been defined in the CCUS implementation working group of the SETPlan into real projects. The other thing, and this is something that Michael already alluded to, is that very strong linkage to the IEA GHG Technology Collaboration Program that exclusively deals at a worldwide scale on CCU and CCS. So that was extremely valuable to make sure that we are always up to par with respect to where are the research and innovation needs. And this was also exemplified in the way we are collaborating with the Mission Innovation Challenge on CCUS. Now, maintaining and managing our stakeholders that are affected by calls and so on was actually also quite important. So all of us, especially in the core management team who, kind of maybe were work package leads in the Eranet ACT, we went out to attend stakeholder forums, meetings like the Zero Emission Platform, the CO2 GeoNet, the UK CCS Association, and so on. There are many of those, but we always try to get the message out about the existence of ACT and this opportunity for multinational and international calls, and then obviously the international consortia. So that's something I think we really think is worthwhile preserving, probably in all the other Eranets as well. We've developed a very, very strong topical ecosystem, in this case related to CCU, CCS, and we need to carry that over into this Clean Energy Transition Partnership. Which brings me to the last one. The last topic maybe of conversation is our evaluation process. Turns out that obviously driven by the initial co-funded call, we set up, as probably most of us, a two-stage call process. So the first stage for pre-proposals, which would conclude with an eligibility check that was done by each of the ACT partners, that was kind of step one. This would result in basically a table of projects that would receive the go with feedback, or a no-go to advance to the full proposal stage. This actually is a challenging process because each of the national or regional funding agencies has different rules on how to proceed to funding their national contributions. So in some cases, countries would purely do an administrative check, is everything filled out appropriately? So that would constitute an eligibility check in some countries. Other countries would actually include a technical evaluation in that eligibility check. So there's quite a bit of spread and breadth here. And this is something I think also for the Clean Energy Transition Partnership we'll have to pay attention to going forward. The second stage, that is really very straightforward, full proposals. We do a quick recheck on the eligibility. And then, of course, we have an international panel that would go and evaluate and arrive at a ranking list. What's kind of interesting in the co-funded call, we had, so that's the money that was also, or where the European Commission contributed as well. We operated two ranking lists, one for large projects, Michael already alluded to it, and Ragnhild as well. CCUS research and innovation projects tend to be large. And then we also left the opportunity open, especially for low technology readiness level projects, for smaller projects, a few 100,000 up to $1 million or so. Less than 3 million. So that actually was quite a useful way to make sure that we could maximize the funding available from the various funding agencies involved. In Act 2, we had no co-fund, and that actually was also extremely useful for us because you might remember that I mentioned funding agencies would contribute, say, anything from 300,000 up to 7 million euros. Now, you can imagine that if there's a country with relatively limited amount of funding in many projects, there would be a risk of breaking a ranking list. So we basically said, okay, if a country runs out of funding or a funding agency runs out of funding, we'll basically just jump across those projects that are involved so that we wouldn't, stop excellent projects as defined by the ranking list developed by the external evaluators. So that turned out to be actually really powerful. And this flexibility, sticking to a ranking list, but accommodating maybe depletion of funds from various funding agencies, is something I think we ought to also consider operationalizing in the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, especially when we're dealing with non-co-funded calls. I just want to recall to you, in ACT, we have about 100 million euros of public funds mobilized, and the European Commission in the first call only contributed around 12, not only, I mean, it's a big chunk, don't get me wrong, but 12 million. But see that the CETP is going to trigger and launch many non-co-funded calls where maybe the rules can be a little bit more flexible or accommodating. With that, I'll close.
Interesting perspective, Gunther, that it can be useful to have no co-fund, which of course you explained very well. I think, yes, that's a very important point, your last point, that and the experience that many of us, at least we also in our Aeronet Smart Energy Systems made, that sometimes it's not so easy to really put into value all the fundings that we have from the different countries. And so sometimes it's very good to have non-co-funded calls. I see Christian trying to tell us something. We have technical problem.
Something, no problem at all. It's just from the machine room. I want to tell you that Gertie's internet connection is very weak. It goes up, goes down. So I don't know if Gertie can really take over a hosting session or not, just for you all to know that there are some bandwidth problems from Gertie to us. Okay, that's it. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Christian. Very valuable. So maybe Gunther or Ragnhild, you should maybe take over Gertie's part.
Thank you. I've received a message from Gertie. She might be connecting now. So if she's there, I'll leave the floor to her. Otherwise, I'll present the monitoring issue.
That's cool. Um, I just look on the timing a little bit. I think we have 5 minutes still to conclude this session. Um, one call out to the audience, as we don't have no actual questions at the moment. That's not bad, but please feel free to also send us just your greeting messages or whatever, just that we know that you are there. That would also be interesting, because if we know what kind of audience we have, what people are around, that's always inspiring for us as presenters and speakers. As in this kind of presenting tool that we're using, we don't feel you, we don't see you. So if you just could send us a little bit of a message who is there, that also would be inspiring for us. Nevertheless, I have some questions that I could bring up at this point. One thing that I captured was you were talking about that it was useful to have a broad call text to bring everyone in. One question that comes up, because we have discussed that a lot in our network. I mean, how are you then working with the call text? How do you set the frame? Do you set up some challenges for this, where you say, okay, we have the analysis that there is a gap in the technology development that needs to be filled now in the coming years, or what is it then that makes the border lines of the call, more or less?
Maybe I'll kick off, and then Ragnhild, maybe you can complement our Kheri. As I mentioned, since we didn't have a preparatory ARANET that would lead up to a co-funded ARANET, we purposefully decided to have a broad definition of the challenges. So it would be all about acceleration in many domains and in many areas, predominantly, say, technical engineering. What we have learned now, especially in the third call, and you might remember 91 pre-proposals and 38 full proposals being invited to full submission, is that continuing or going forward, we'll probably need to have a sharper definition, where we would have we would inform the community that we call upon to deliver projects, proposals at least, have a better understanding of what the specific challenges are in certain countries, in certain regions, and then allow consortia to form that would specifically address, Kees Kwant mentioned, for example, bio-CCS, so BECCS, for example. This is of incredible interest in some countries in ACT, but less in others. So by emphasizing, for example, the need to develop solutions for bioenergy and CCS, we would then almost automatically channel potential projects in that direction. So that's an ongoing debate that we have, and it definitely will be the case in this next call that we are going to set up. A sharper definition, a sharper granularity, both in terms of challenges, in terms of the scope, and then importantly, granularity in terms of the expected impact in various regions of the ACT community. Ragnhild.
Yeah, I fully agree with you.
I just have to call you to be a little bit briefer on the answers, because I think we have 3 minutes left, and we now get also answers from the audience, questions from the audience, which is great, and I would like to bring them in before you go on. And also another point, my great team reminded me that I have a co-moderator backstage waiting. That is Fredrik Lundström from the Swedish Energy Agency. Unfortunately, as we're not sure if he can be there or not. I forgot him completely. Sorry, Fredrik. I'm very sorry. Hi, Fredrik. First of all, welcome, and feel free to come up with some additional questions. And while you are thinking about it for a moment, I would ask Nicholas bring up the two questions I think that we got from the audience, because we have to put that all together now to finalize this session in the next minutes.
Okay, maybe I can answer to Beatrice's question on how we set up the expert panel. Basically, what we do is each of the funding agencies nominates a number of experts in the various domains that carbon capture, utilization, and storage address. Then we kind of have usually a very long list of experts, and then we sort of down select from that long list, depending on the topics of the pre-proposals that come in. What we pay very careful attention to is, for example, that we get an appropriate gender balance. This is as often a struggle, but I think we are getting there eventually. The second thing that we really pay careful attention to is that experts from country X do not evaluate projects where country X is involved in, just to make sure that there is no kind of bias set up. The other important aspect, of course, with our expert pool that we have is that they obviously are informed and they need to identify conflicts of interest if there are any. And there's, again, a set process for that where we submit a list of consortia partners plus the abstract to the experts so that they can say yes or no. Ragnhild, anything more on the expert panel?
That's correct. It's of course not possible to avoid that countries will be involved in the expert panel, that because the CCUS community is rather small. But we've had very, very good processes in these terms, and no protests from be it the evaluators themselves or the projects being assessed. So I think it's a very good process we have established and that we can continue with. So
at this point, Fredrik, maybe, I mean, we are starting to consume already a few minutes from the next sessions, but as the call management and the call operation, of course, is one of the central, points of these kind of activities, maybe we can use 1 or 2 minutes more on this. Fredrik, as you are doing a lot of things, but also are responsible for the part of the call organization, call management in our network. Maybe you have some additional aspects that you want to bring in and ask. Fredrik, we can't hear you at the moment. Seems that you are muted or your mic is on.
Am I unmuted now? Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mikael, and thank you, everyone. I think it's really interesting to listening. I have a short thing. Maybe it's a difficult question, but as you were going through the call process and how you have done both the scoping for the call, but then the implementation, the selection, and the evaluation, all of us that have been working with AirNets, we know that there are usually some parts of the process which is really hard to modify and optimize without making it worse in another part. Is there if you would say one key part of your process where you still think this is the most important part where we would like to improve? And similarly, is there one part where you think this is where I think we have a really good process? So one part that is really solid, you think this we should keep. Another part where you are still looking for the best solution very much.
I would think very much the eligibility check of the pre-proposal is where we need to find a more efficient process to accommodate say, funding agents that are more administrative in nature versus funding agents that are both administrative and technical in nature. So that's where the eligibility process needs to really, I think we need to shape up here, because it causes, I don't want to say friction, but it causes a little bit of lack of comprehension of what the issues are amongst the two. What I think is actually very good, at least in the early stages of such calls, is the openness. So basically, it's very easy to put together a consortium because of that relative breadth, both in terms of the scope and also in terms of the, say, the financial potential, the financial scope of that of the call. So maximizing flexibility and also having countries easy come in and easy drop out if they want to sit out a call. That is really, I think we've done that really well. Sorry, I don't mean to be self-praising. Ragnhild.
Yes, we've done it very well, but there are definitely some parts here that can be developed and improved, I would say. And the various nations' different view on this is something that we need to be more precise on and understand, I would say. Also, what will be the effect if we do this and not that? And another thing in this context also, when it comes to the eligibility check, plus the national scientific or technical evaluation, is also that we experience that some of the applicants do not really read, or they don't understand exactly what these national annexes talks about and requires. So, for instance, if we require 3 partners from 3 ACT countries at least, and if one of these partners drops out because of ineligibility, if that specific countries, for instance, has required industry participation, and the industry participation is not there, well, okay, so that project will drop out, which is sad because it can be a very good project, but that specific country said, no, we will not fund it.
Okay, we have to move on, but there's still one interesting question, I think, from Francesco Luca Basile. Maybe we can take this very quickly and then start the next session.
Maybe, Francesco, I can take that up. So the basis of selection for projects, I mean, think that stage 1 is eligibility. Okay, so it's not really a selection, but it's an eligibility check. So that I think is important. Now, once projects go through the eligibility and they're invited to submit a full proposal, and once they're on the ranking list, in theory, countries can't stop these projects anymore. This is why issues around oversubscription, which probably most of you know, and the flexibility to adjust budget to make sure that our list of funded project is as long as possible, is actually another very important point. So during the full after the evaluation by the external experts, the international experts, we don't select anymore. It's really until the money runs out. So maximizing, dynamically allocating, dynamically adjusting budgets is actually one of the strong points that I think that we've developed. I hope that answers the question, Francesco.
Thank you very much. Frederick, as I'm not sure if you have to leave soon, maybe back to you again, something else that you want to stress at the moment.
No, I mean, I don't want to take more time of this. I think the answers also to my question aligned very much with the experience I think we have from our joint program platform, Smart Energy System. So I look forward to listening to others. I'm still hoping that someone have the perfect solution for that. I've seen now in the presentation you made by ACT that there's a lot that we can learn from you, and we will definitely, all of us, try to benefit from that, and looking forward to the future work with that.
Right. Thanks for this comment, Frederick. And we move on to the next session. I think it's Gunther now that I give the floor to, right?
No, it's Gerdi, and according to a message from Gerdi, she has an excellent connection now. So I leave the floor to Gerdi.
Great. Christian will try to bring her in.
Yes.
Yeah, but she is not there. So she had a great connection, but I don't know where to, because she's not in our room. Sorry for that.
That's unfortunate. I
can't see her.
Ragnhild or Gunther to take over until Gerdi is connected, or should we change sessions? You could also, I mean, you could also jump if you want.
I think I can just do it, and if Gerdi comes, she can take over.
So very sorry for the technical problems, but yeah, that's how it is.
I think this is the local situation at Gerdi. She has some bandwidth problems all the whole time. So just take it like it is. That's the internet. That's the world. But be sure the internet, this thing goes away someday. It goes away.
Yes. Yes, we're looking forward to the physical meetings soon to come. But anyway, the monitoring work package is led by RVO with Gerdi and her colleagues, and that is executed extremely well. But the monitoring and the follow-up of the projects in brief here. When we signed the grant agreement with the projects being funded, they also received the monitoring guidelines, which is not a huge packet of documents, but it's a rather streamlined one. And again, we address some important issues there. And we take a lot of notes around reporting on a frequent basis. We require project traffic light reports, what we call them, or quarterly reports. And they are based on a similar system as we do with the evaluation, the first stage of evaluation. We lean very much on, is it good enough? Well, tick it on the green side. If it's absolutely out of control or out of scope, tick it on the red side. And if there are some uncertainties and challenges in a specific work package or whatever there might be, okay, tick it on the yellow side. So the report on this scale to us and address additional comments if needed. And any deviation should, of course, be commented so that there can be a reason to follow up. What we do then is that all the partners involved in that specific project look into the report and say, okay, that's fine. It's my task to follow up on an issue here. And we leave it to the lead country of that specific project to be in contact with the project lead to give the precise and correct feedback. We would rather see information on the yellow and red side as early as possible and not wait until the project is wrapping up and finishing. And it has shown to be very helpful. So this is not an angry process. It's a very helpful process for us in the consortium and those being in charge of the monitoring, but it's very helpful also for the projects. So they are really, really appreciating this situation and the way we are doing this work. The monitoring, just when it comes to the flow of the contracts, is shown very in brief here. The project coordinator sets up and develops the consortium agreement with their partners. These partners again make the national contracts with that specific funding organization in their own country. And the coordinator of ACT, that means us or me, make the contract, the grant agreement with the project coordinator. So that is in a brief. And us as coordinator, we have the contact with the Commission also for other reporting and collecting information also from these projects being developed and producing results underway. And it also shows this scheme, how the money flows. It goes from the funding agency to the various partners involved in the specific projects. So RVO, they pay their national partners on their basis, be it on an annual basis or after national report has been submitted, or whatever it might be. They do it according to their normal routines and procedures. And here is the scheme, a schedule of the reporting flow. Also, again, the project coordinator reports to RVO, who again spreads and inform and distribute this report to those partners being involved. And we use a platform, a side platform on our web for this information. And we frequently also discuss these reports and the way to follow it up and be in contact with the project lead for feedbacks and so on. We discuss that on our regular meetings in the consortium. We also have executed a midterm review for the Act 1 projects, and we'll do so also now planning for the Act 2 project that will be during this summer. At first, we scheduled meetings only for the large project, those requesting or being funded with more than 3 million euros from ACT. But now we've decided that we shall do it on demand. So anyway, the large project will be there, but we will request some of the others if they are in some kind of trouble or we see some challenges, whatever that might be, or there will be other reasons why we want them to this review meeting. It is very, very useful, and it's very appreciated by the projects. Of course, it requires a lot of extra work and preparation for us in the ACT consortium, and particularly those who executing the questions. But it also requires a lot of work and preparation from the projects and the work package leads and partners. But they are very happy to be invited to these meetings, and they report back that this is very useful. And it enables us to keep informed and also to discuss the way forward. And again, we see the possibilities that we can connect some of the projects tighter together if there are some obvious good reasons or could be similar challenges that we discover during these midterm reviews. We do the monitoring meetings ourselves. There is no outsourcing, and we think that this implements also the results and the community